video. In today's video, we'll look at a scenario in which Turkey goes to war with the Middle East. Yep, that's what's going to happen in this video. And also, before we begin, Turkey is the 12th strongest nation. The closest one in this region to their standing is Egypt at 14, which I had to do research because I was like, who's the strongest nation in the Middle East? Let's make them go against war with the rest of the Middle East. You can technically put the Middle East to include these nations. Parts of Central Asia could be considered the Middle East. And then here, Sudan and Libya you could consider if you want, but I don't. I consider the Middle East to be Egypt, to Iran, to Turkey, to Yemen. Yep. That's a weird way of describing it. We're at 225 subscribers. Our goal is 400 by June 2nd. That means we're only 75 away. When we began this goal, we had 290. So if you think of it, 35 subscriber gain since the beginning of this goal. And now Turkey is ready for its war. And, well, what do? Well, they start their war in Syria because they already have troops there. And guess what? They already had troops in Cyprus. In northern Cyprus, where they had troops before the war even began, will be colored by that red. The light color will just be where they're invading. And well, they quickly move into the Kurdish regions as they already have troops amassed or something. Well, they already have troops in the region. And well, they move troops to Iran's border to cross, mostly to defend their territory because this is really mountainous terrain. And then they move into Iraq and Syria they're moving into. Their goal to take out Syria ASAP, as soon as possible. With Israel being a target for Turkey to attack. And well, they don't want to do this to Egypt because an amphibious landing could easily fail. And Egypt is stronger than everybody else except Turkey, who is the strongest. They think they can win because they're the strongest. It may seem like if you're the strongest, you'll win, but that doesn't mean anything. It's what you do with it. And it's how many nations you're trying to invade at once. Yep, and they think they can invade this many nations. Really? And well, yeah. Well, one nation they're invading Syria, they're about to probably collapse to Turkey. But Egypt has a trick up their sleeve. They're hidden behind Israel. And well, yeah. With Israel holding off the Syrian front as they march into Jordan. With a lot of Jordan being pretty much protected by Israel. Can Israel hold this? Probably. Hopefully. But will they? Who knows? With Turkey taking a dive approach across here, through the mountains. They dive through the mountains. Explain that. As they march up into the mountains. As the mountains collapse to them. Yep. And then they move in further into Syria and take the capital, Damascus. As they move into taking out the rest of Lebanon. And trying to take out Jordan. And they do kind of cross into Israel. With their goal, they're basically stuck. Basically, their goal is really hard, so they have to fight hard. And well, at best, it's a bit... They do have chance to win, but it's not likely. They probably won't win, I don't think. But this is not the turning point, no. This is just some fighting that's going to happen. Because every now and then you need to get pushed back. In every conflict, I bet both sides get pushed back, usually. Unless it doesn't even have land fighting. Or if it's done in a day. As they move into northern Saudi Arabia, the Turkish forces are unbeatable, basically. As they encircle Baghdad, they march and take the city. With them taking more than half of Iraq, their advance slows a bit as they're headed for the coast, and everybody's trying to defend. With them having another strategy of moving towards Riyadh, thinking that will move the Saudi troops over. As they make it to the water, and they're trying to encircle Riyadh, with Saudi Arabia launching a counteroffensive, but they took troops to try and kick them back a bit. With Egyptian forces probably wanting to cut this off, they move here with forces to highly defend this. With Israel and Egypt being right there, just waiting to do something. With Iraq eventually being able to split the allies of Saudi Arabia and Iran apart. Whoever knew they would work together? Oh, probably. But did you really think in a Wild Mapper video that would happen? And while they move all the way over, as they move into the oil-rich region of Iran, they're probably at the peak of where they'll make. Of how much land they're about to hit the peak of how much land they'll have throughout the full video. And well, they move towards Riyadh, which this time Riyadh does fall indeed. And well, then they move towards Tehran. But as they are moving lots of troops through there, Jordan and Israel launches a counteroffensive, which is really successful. Egypt makes a landing here, and Saudi Arabia helps these two allies, as I think Israel is also a pretty strong nation. And well, here there's a counteroffensive, with Iran's counteroffensive kicking them away from Tehran going to success. And well, now they're basically trying to push through, and they're using more of a wave tactic than anything else. And they take back the oil-rich region that Turkey thought was a prize. With Riyadh being taken back, with Iran's movement into Iraq being very weird looking, as they take over a huge chunk, maybe about a quarter of Iraq, and then they move towards Baghdad, which they encircle and take. They're using a lot of manpower. With this being a likewise really good spot to try and encircle, but with Turkey seeing these are very good troops, well experienced, they decide to have an immediate withdrawal of all of that land, which is probably not as embarrassing as it would be if it was encircled. Which Turkey is like, you can't beat us yet. With Turkey moving down into Iraq, but not getting far, moving into Saudi Arabia a bit and into Jordan a tiny bit. And then they try to reestablish this front towards Tehran, which at first goes really well as they move towards the city and almost encircle it. But they forgot one thing. Iran was planning to do this. Iran does this. Some of the most experienced, best trained troops are fully encircled. And well, that's a big deal because there's no way of getting them back. Which, they do the unthinkable, these troops. They do this. And Iran sees them trying to move, so Iran chases them. But Iran realizes if they don't get troops in front and to the sides, then this won't work. And then they get troops here, which crushes this. They're all taken prisoner of war, or they died in the fighting. That's sad. But yeah. And well, Saudi Arabia's land is finally liberated, followed by Lebanon's, with Damascus falling back, and Turkey is being pushed to a reasonable amount of land that they could occupy. They may be the 12th strongest nation, but that doesn't mean anything. With them trying to move around the mountains, yep. With a lot of Turkish forces being encircled here, but they end up taking prisoner. With this being an odd front, basically, it's a two-front war. With Cyprus, a landing happens in Cyprus, but doesn't go as expected as Turkey is kicked out of Cyprus, and Greece just is cheering. Probably. And yeah. With Turkey trying to use conscription to no avail. With the Turkish forces being kicked back. With them fully kicked out of Iran. And then as the Kurdish people see this as an opportunity. And they seize the opportunity and start widespread revolts across Turkey. Which is actually likely they were funded by some outside group. And well, yeah. With Iran taking offensive action into Turkey. With the goal of reaching many different areas. While these Kurdish rebels continue their attack on Turkey. With Turkish forces being completely kicked out of there, followed by kicked out of their former occupation. Assyria sending forces north. And while Iran gets right across and takes out this land, Turkey is on the verge of collapse. As a new, some kind of movement rises up, and they're a nationalistic, probably, or socialistic, or communistic. Yep, definitely. As some kind of anti-government revolution happens, and I don't know what. And them quickly marching to and taking Ankara after taking Istanbul, they quickly become the ultimate power. And quickly after, they meet with the other nations, including the Kurds, for peace, which is not really look nice for their nation. It's really a shame, probably. I don't even know. What do you think the treaty is, fair or unfair? Comment that after the videos. Militarized zone here. They give land to Cyprus, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. Kurdistan is released by this new government as well with a big demilitarized zone. And they're forced to pay they're forced to pay $12 trillion in reparations, paying about $100 billion a year. Yep. And they're trying to pay $12 trillion. Keep that in mind. Because if they're paying $200 billion a year, that would mean 5 years to pay off $1 trillion, right? 5 years to pay off $1 trillion. But that's 12, right? That's 60 years. Will they pay it? Who knows? They probably won't. Because how has big war reparations gone in the past? They went to war. And who knows? Maybe some nation will say, I didn't get enough out of this treaty. Iraq might say that. Who knows? Or maybe somebody will say, I don't know why I didn't get enough of the war reparations. Who knows? But that's what I think would happen if Turkey and the Middle East went to war. Why do I think this would happen? Because, they may be the strongest in the region. But we have to remember, Iran is not weak. Saudi Arabia is not weak. Egypt isn't weak. Israel isn't weak. And and I think their economies in some of these nations are probably better than Turkey's lira. And, that's pretty much all for today's video. We need to get to 400 subscribers by June 1st. We're at 225. That's 75 left to go. So if you could, please like, subscribe, comment. That's all for today's video. Wild Mapper out!